from the Lakeside Newsroom of the Henrico Citizen, your hometown news source since 2001. This is the Henrico News Minute with publisher Tom Lapis.
Henrico supervisors decide how to allocate the remaining amount of federal CARES Act money coming to the county. We'll tell you what they decided, and some really good news for employees of a local insurance company. Details are coming up on today's Henrico News Minute for Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020. It's brought to you today by Henrico Area Mental Health.
And now for the news.
Well, it's been about 5.5 months since the Henrico School Board put a stop to its redistricting process, at least temporarily, in light of the pandemic. The board was originally set to adopt new school boundaries in late May before the pandemic hit. Now the topic of redistricting will make its way back onto a school board agenda at tomorrow's work session, where board members are expected to decide how to proceed or if to proceed with those redistricting plans. The board was looking to adjust boundaries throughout the county in preparation for the opening of new versions of Highland Springs and Tucker high schools and an expanded version of Holiday Elementary School next fall. The process also sought to provide the most efficient use for all available space in the school system, plan for future growth, and reduce the concentration of poverty levels at schools wherever possible. The redistricting process began in earnest last September, and school officials had pared down more than 30 redistricting options devised by a 67-member citizen committee and a consulting firm down to just two, known as options D4 and E4, before the pandemic put a stop to those plans. During a Facebook Live video earlier this week, Tuckahoe District School Board member Marcy Shea said that the board is not expected to take any action on either plan during tomorrow's work session, but rather, she said, quote, "It is essentially a plan for when we might make a plan," end quote. 3 possible scenarios are laid out in board papers. One would involve the board resuming the process of redistricting at a certain point in time. Another would end the process with no additional action, and a third would narrow the process to include only specific concerns of board members. The latter option is one that Chairman Roscoe Cooper in March suggested, saying that the board could choose to focus its redistricting efforts just on Highland Springs, Tucker, and Holiday for the coming school year. Well, the pandemic has thrown more than one wrench into the redistricting plans, though, because when Henrico opted for a virtual return to school this month, the families of hundreds or perhaps even thousands of students who had been enrolled in the system removed them in favor of private schools or homeschooling. The exact number of students who left the system is not yet known. School system officials take their official count later this month and will report it shortly thereafter. The results could impact the action of the board, which also will have to project how many of those students might re-enroll in Henrico next year. You can watch a live stream of today's school board work session beginning at 1 p.m. on henricoschools.us. Also follow our website and our Twitter account for updates. Henrico County has received almost $71 million in federal CARES Act funding in light of the pandemic, and last night the county's Board of Supervisors made plans for the final $23.1 million that it will receive on the general government side. The majority of that money will be spent on fire and sheriff's department salaries for the next quarter. Another $6 million will be spent on expenses and salaries incurred elsewhere that are eligible for that funding. In total, $57 million went to the county's general government side, and the remaining $13.7 million went directly to other programs through competitive or direct funding. Also, at last night's meeting, the Board of Supervisors approved the sale of no more than $250 million in bonds during the next 14 days. Officials intend to refinance about $160 million worth of utility revenue bonds sold in 2013 and 2014, and then also issue $30 million in new debt that will allow the public utility system in Henrico to expedite a few capital projects. The move is expected to save the county $16 to $17 million over the life of the bonds, according to Finance Director Megan Coates. Yesterday we told you about a shooting that took place Monday night at an Eastern Henrico apartment complex. Yesterday afternoon we learned that the victim in that shooting was an 11-year-old boy who is in critical condition at a local hospital, according to Henrico police. The shooting happened at about 10:30 in the 4600 block of Lakefield Mews Place in the Lakefield Mews apartment complex. That's off Gay Avenue near Laburnum Avenue. Henrico police are encouraging anyone who may have seen the incident or vehicles leaving the area to submit any tip, no matter how small it might seem. You can do that anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 780-1000 or online at p3tips.com. Well, here's a little bit of a head-scratcher. For the 14th time already this year, TSA officers found a gun at an airport checkpoint at Richmond International Airport. It happened on Monday when a Richmond woman brought a handgun in one of her carry-on bags. It was not loaded, but she had 5 loose bullets in the same bag. With the latest case, the airport has now matched the total number of times guns were stopped at checkpoints each of the previous 2 years. That's something that has TSA officers and airport officials concerned, especially since the airport's overall passenger totals are down about 60% from pre-pandemic levels during the past 6 months. TSA's Federal Security Director for Richmond International Airport, Chuck Burke, called it, quote, an extremely disturbing trend, end quote. He said that the vast majority of travelers who are caught with guns at checkpoints claim that they forgot they had their guns with them, but he said, quote, quite frankly, that's not an acceptable reason for carrying a firearm on an aircraft, end quote. Some really good news yesterday for hundreds of employees of Henrico-based Elephant Insurance who learned they will be receiving bonuses from the CEO of the company's parent company in advance of his retirement. David Stevens, the CEO and co-founder of parent company Admiral Group, announced that he will give a personal gift totaling about $13 million to more than 11,000 company employees. Each full-time employee will receive a bonus of about $1,300, and each part-timer will receive about $650. Admiral Group is based in the United Kingdom. Stevens has spent 29 years with the company and is planning to retire soon. Elephant has more than 630 employees, most of whom are in the Richmond region.
Every 12 minutes, a Virginian dies from an opioid overdose.
Every 12 minutes.
Opioid overdoses are on the increase in Henrico. Yes, the opioid epidemic is still impacting residents in Henrico.
But you can help.
To find out what you can do, go to bouncebackhc.com.
That's bouncebackhc.com. Knowledge is power, including learning about naloxone. That's naloxone, which can temporarily reverse the toxic effects of an opioid or heroin overdose.
Get informed, get help, save a life.
Go to bouncebackhc.com. That's bouncebackhc.com.
To equip yourself with the knowledge to help our residents and the community of Henrico County against the opioid epidemic.
Knowing what to do will allow you to be prepared to save a life. Go to bouncebackhc.com today.
That's bouncebackhc.com or call 804-727-8515.
That's 804-727-8515. Directly for substance abuse services.
This message is sponsored by Henrico Area CSB Prevention Services.